Yeah, I'm a tough audience. I'm tough.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kobold Con. I am here joined with Jeff Quick,
Me.
designer for Necromancer, and Stan, the artist for Necromancer. And y'all, I am so excited about this game. It was such a fun game to both when the one playtest game that I was able to actually attend, but also watching the people at Do You Validate play.
Yeah, right.
Just
They were having a great time.
yeah,
Wow.
They, those are good cool kids. I like them.
those are
I like
some
them. They're
cool
cool kids.
kids. Well, yeah, so so we're gonna do a little interview here. I have some questions for all of you, and then after those, if we have some time, we are going to open it up to a little bit of Q&A as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, I answer all questions, no matter what, related to the game or otherwise. Throw them out, man.
Well,
Let's have them.
really?
Yep.
Yes.
Everything.
So everybody, if you have if you have some questions, get them ready. Yeah, we'll get to them when we get to them. But first and foremost, we'll get to your questions later. More importantly,
Whenever
my
that happens,
questions.
whatever.
But the first one is, how did Necromancer come to be? Like, how did this idea come about? And like, what was it like going from idea to it's a real thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I have been working in board games and card games and that sort of section of the hobby industry for over a decade, before I even came to Kobold Press. And so I came in with like, hey, we should do board games, and of course it's not like they hadn't had that idea, uh, but with the background that I have, it was easy for me to sort of slide into this. And we talked about what we wanted to do and what kind of games we wanted to do, and I asked these blue sky questions, like, if there were, what three games that exist now do you wish that Kobold had made, right? And just sort of get a big idea of what people wanted to make and what we thought the audience would want.
Mhm.
And among all of this, we knew that we wanted to do just kind of a funny sort of take that kind of card game. Like, we sort of looked at the market and we were like, we haven't seen lately is one of these.
Mhm.
And it kind of has a little bit of that 90s, game kind of feel, uh, and so we kicked that around, and Wolfgang Bauer, the CEO, uh, had this document that he just sort of had written up some years ago. He was like, "Here's a game I thought we might make," and it had a real rough outline of the whole thing, uh, like the bios for the six necromancers that you'll find in the rules.
Mhm.
That's still pretty much what he wrote in that original doc.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just sort of the characters that exist in the game. And he had a bunch of card ideas, and I was like, "This is great. Now let me change a bunch of things." And um, I went away and I wrote up a whole bunch more cards, and I fleshed out the rules a little bit, and made it a, a more a more full game. Before, it was just a really good idea on 2 pages.
Mhm.
But the reason why Wolf is still on the cover is because a lot of his original concept uh, is still there. I just built it out a lot. Um, and so that's sort of how it came to be. And
Mhm.
as much as I would love to self-aggrandize and be the sole name on the front of the box, above the game name, um, Wolf provided a really really strong foundation, and then he was like, "I've let go of the leash, Jeff. Go do stuff." And
Mhm.
so I ran around, and so it was something that we both deservedly have our names on, I think.
Yeah. And so like I didn't even know. I didn't even know that Wolfgang was the pulled this idea out of a box. I like this is my first time hearing that. So that's so cool. And so like from like that point of like, okay, you've got it, you're starting to like work on it, you're changing it. At what point did Stan you come into the mix there, and like how did you all come up with like this is how like we know exactly what we want this game to look like visually?
I don't know. I came in with a from in, right? I've known Jeff and Wolfgang a long time. Wolfgang and I have lunches together pretty regularly. And one time he mentioned that this was a thing that might happen, and would I be interested in being involved doing the art for it? And I said, "Oh boy, would I." And then another lunch or two went by and came back and said, "Hey, are you still interested? Because it's happening." So I kind of was involved before it happened, but I didn't do anything.
Right.
And then Jeff did all this stuff, and when they were ready, they said, "Come on in," and I did.
Well, I mean, fairly early in the process, like I think we had a lot of the design done, but we got to the point where we were like, okay, we need an artist, and I knew that I wanted, cartoony, funny art, right? I didn't need this to be, a White Wolf product. I didn't need Tim Bradstreet doing this art. Um, and Stan is
Although
a
that'd be an interesting variant.
that wouldn't that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
The limited edition version of Necromancer.
If it's a success, maybe we'll do the Tim Bradstreet version. Uh, and and so Stan and I have been friends for a long time, and I have watched his art really come along in the last few years, and I thought, oh man, I think Stan would be really good for this. I think he's going to get the jokes. I think he's going to have the right style for what we're trying to sort of push here, and he'll be super easy to work with because we all already know him. Stan, wasn't this at some point in the process you were like, I had a cartoon in every issue of Kobold Quarterly.
I had two cartoons in every issue of Kobold Quarterly. That's right.
The
No,
foundational product for this company, Stan was in, and so it felt like a really good kind of I don't want to say throwback, but like a bring back, right? Like Stan's got a good history with Kobold Press and with Wolfgang and with me, and so it was an easy, fun collaboration.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And and it's so interesting knowing that like not only is like this idea like for like the game like this thing that had just like kind of been around until it started like becoming a thing, but like the three of you and then mostly then the two of you after coming together and really making it what it is like now.
Wolfgang had an important role because he picked up the check at lunch.
Crucial.
That's right. Thank you, Wolf. Call me. Let's have lunch again.
So
the third person who entered the chat at that point though was Mark, the art director, who at the beginning like was not as aware of Stan, and is a D&D guy like to the core, but was like, I don't know about this card game business. I don't know nothing about that, and so it was interesting to sort of get Mark's perspective, right? Like Mark, and bring him in and have him sort of direct Stan, because there have been a lot of times when I've been like, I don't know, just draw something, I guess. And and Mark was like, no, actually, there's a way we do this, and please do it.
Please do it.
I got a lot of things that said, I don't know, draw something like this. More than a couple of came. It's like, I don't know. Skeleton doing something.
Right. Well, one thing I really appreciate about working with Stan, like a lot of times I had like a gag in mind, and I would write it into the art order. But there were some times when I'm like, I don't know, man, I've got like a card title pun. I think there's probably a joke in here, but I don't know what it is. Stan, make a joke. And and I just couldn't. I don't think I could do that with a lot of other artists. I couldn't just like trust them to come up with something funny, or to necessarily interpret my funny, right? Like I've written a bunch of art orders, and sometimes you write something and then something comes back and you're like, oh, Now I see how that could have been interpreted differently.
My
Yeah.
favorite, so my favorite example of that, and I think I listed this as one of my favorite cards when asked, was Idle Hands, which was one of the first ones we did,
Yeah, yeah.
where you had idle hands, and it was I really don't know. Pitch us some ideas. I don't know. And so I did. I just, instead of doing a finished thing, I sent a page with a bunch of, there's this and there's that, and I circled the two or three I liked best. And the one I liked best was these crawling claws, these hands sitting on a couch watching TV. And I thought, there's no way that'll fly, but that's really funny. So I circled that and said, this one's my favorite, but I think you probably want to go with that one. And it came back. Jeff was like, no, totally the couch.
Hands on the couch watching TV was awesome.
Yeah.
That
So
completely sells it.
I mean that goes to my next question. Like, so what order does this go? Did you design cards and their mechanics and then have art made for like what you had already imagined, or was there a lot of art led versions of these cards where it's like Stan got
You
you
know
a
what? That
picture?
art led, that's a good idea. We should try that sometime.
I'm, I
um,
love I love getting paid for stuff that may or may not show up. Sure.
um, what generally would happen is that I would think of like a card idea, a mechanic, uh, or a good pun, right?
Mhm.
Or sometimes both at the same time. And so you come up with sort of like, for instance, I'm looking at my list of cards over here. Uh, no brainer. No, one card is called no brainer, right? And
Mhm.
so the joke came pretty easily. There's a guy taking somebody else's brain out of his head. Um, and then the card itself is something easy. And so there's a little pun there, and the main process of coming up with gags involves me creating the card, figuring out the pun, and then just pacing around my house for hours, um, trying to think of something that sort of explains the not just the sort of the double entendre of the pun, but also sort of embodies the mechanics and sort of like ties it all together and
Mhm.
also is a gag. And uh, ar- Art orders are notoriously hard to do, even when you're playing it straight. Like I'm a words guy, and so I don't really think in pictures in that way.
Mhm.
And
Uh,
so uh, uh, so whenever I write something and then they're like, great, now, create 5 art pieces that go with this. And I'm like, I don't know. There's a gnome and he's standing, right?
No, I
And so,
understand. I understand implicitly.
I just had to just, wander around my house a lot, and the dogs would just sort of watch me enter and leave rooms, and while I would think of jokes, and yeah, more than once I would just say, Stan, I don't know what the joke here is, man. Would you please do something funny? I don't know. And he
Do
would,
funny.
I got a sack full of funny on my back here. Let me reach in. How about that?
That's so good. So I'm interested in like if this was like the kind of like the deal where like you're coming up with ideas, throwing art back and forth. What are there any cards or mechanics that ended up just like on the cutting room floor where it's like you came up with something or you drew art for something and it's like we think this is kind of good, toss it
I won't know
actually.
till I see the game. Like,
uh,
I send them all this stuff,
Fair.
and they decide there could be my favorite piece could not be in there. I don't know.
there is some stuff that wound up. So we the game, after I got done with it, we sent it to a developer because I think it needed more. Like Will
Mhm.
Sobel did some development on the game, and I think he made some good choices. Um, but he changed some stuff, like I changed stuff, right? When Wolfgang handed it off to me,
Mhm.
and so as a result, some cards wound up not making it, um, but not very many.
Mhm.
Like I was instructed to not pay for a bunch of art that we don't use. And so which kind of it's to some extent it kind of just happens with card games.
Yeah.
Like you certainly don't want to do it on purpose, but a lot of times you just wind up with a little bit of extra art. Uh, Torches and Pitchforks didn't make it into the final, which is what you would think. It's a crowd of villagers with angry about your necromantic activities,
Hmm.
and that didn't make it in. That was a nice. I mean, there wasn't like so much as a gag there, but it was a nice illo of angry villagers. I don't. Stan, do you remember? Was there was anybody holding a rubber chicken or anything like that? Like I
I
don't.
don't.
I
No, I
don't.
don't think so. It was just a crowd
Um,
going. "Rah, rah, rah, rah."
we have one. It's a promo card, so it won't be in the set. You'll
Oh.
have to be attentive to find it. It's called Roaming Adventurer, and it's one of our Valiant Six. I think it's the rogue. Uh,
Oh.
and his role
Eliza.
in the game is he's not anybody's, right? He's an adventurer. So when he comes into the game, he goes into the legion of the player to your left, and then just roams around killing things in people's legions.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Like he's not under your control. He just wanders around and kills stuff. And you're like, crap, he's coming over here
Because
next.
he's helping. He's like Gru in the Gru game.
Right. And so
That's
I had another one called Murder Hobo that went in the opposite direction. And when they met, it was explosive, but that wound up being too complicated, and so we left Roaming Adventurer in there, and maybe Murder Hobo show up later.
oh, I really like that concept.
Like
That's like
both of those, the pieces of art for both of those were my caricature
Yeah,
of
yeah,
an actual piece of art that's appeared in other Kobold
right,
products.
right. So both of
that's
them
so
were
cool.
the were two of the Valiant Six characters that we have.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's a nice little sort of Kobold Easter egg.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so good. Everyone get your questions ready because I'm gonna ask one more question and then all of you all get your turn. So stock on up. Um, uh, my last question that I have for you is like, how different is this final version of the game versus the way that it started? The
Um,
yeah.
if you were to see Wolf's original document, you would notice some interesting consistencies, right? That you might normally think would have gotten weeded out. I think aspects of it stayed in because I think what we wanted was a good old fashioned you know uh, put stuff on the table and fight kind of card game, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and he had that vision from the start, and I carried through that vision, and a lot of that stayed put, right? So you can attack each other. Uh, the there's the well in the middle of the table that you go to, and we used to be fighting at the well, and what happened in development was we wound up instead of the well being a place where well, you still fight at the well, but instead of the well being sort of a place where sort of a second battlefield
Mm-hmm.
in that way, you're trying to get minions to the well to sacrifice them, and so that's a big change.
Yeah.
If you can, if you can get to the well, get a minion there, leave them there for a turn. If they still are alive when your turn comes around again, you can sacrifice them. They come back out of the game, so they're not at the well anymore. But that's sort of a second victory condition uh, that I don't know if it's easier. Uh, I think it's
It
it's
was
probably a little harder to actually pull off, but it's a lot of fun. And if you don't sort of keep an eye on both areas, then somebody can sneak up on you that way.
yeah. I remember from my time playing, I don't think like any of us ever really sent anything to the Well of Shadows because we were
The
so
well was
busy fighting
yeah
each
the
other.
yeah the development helped fix a lot of that because in some earlier versions of the game it was just really hard to get any traction, right? Like it was
Hmm.
it was so heavily take that everybody was just taking that all the time and nobody was winning.
Hmm.
And so there's a little more space to get things done, I think, in some later versions of the game since you played Kendo.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna open it up to chat questions, and I think we have a good one to start off here. Fet Pet over on YouTube is asking, so is Necromancer designed to be expandable like Cards Against Humanity, or more of a standalone kind of like this is it, this is what we get?
I know
Yeah.
I want to know the answer to this.
Okay. What? All right, Stan, go. What's your answer?
No, I don't know. I want to know.
I would love to give Stan more work on this game. It is designed standalone. However, it is easily expandable. Um, and I have already, designed a bunch of cards. I have a Lich's mini expansion in the shoot,
Mm-hmm.
vampires. I just sort of in the game every kind of undead, wights and zombies and skeletons, they kind of have their own sort of mechanical uh, niche.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I sort of figured that out and started designing toward it, I was like, well, I could do this kind of undead and this kind of undead, and not all of them could make it in, but whatever sorts of undead monsters you can imagine, uh, I've probably already got half an idea on how to make it. So, uh, uh, I would love to do an expansion. Everyone, please run out and buy the game. The thing that makes sure we get an expansion is that,
Is to get the game.
well, I mean, like, look, I don't want to undercut any, but this is a brand new thing that Kobold Press is trying to do, right? And it's
Yeah.
a different market. Like it's weird because we're all kind of geeks and we all sort of think, okay, well, we all like these things, right? But the fact is that the market for role-playing games is different than the market for card and board games. And
Yeah.
so, in a real sense, we're trying something new, and we would love for it to work. I have a lot of enthusiasm for this. Like I said, I've done it for a decade. I have a whole bunch of games that I would love for us to publish. Um, we need customers to agree.
So what you're
Yep.
saying is, wait, let me get this straight. What you're saying is,
Yeah.
if they buy it,
Hmm.
you'll make more.
I'm just listen. That's one of the options on the table. That could
Okay,
very
okay.
well happen.
No,
Yeah.
I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's something in that.
Yeah, and especially because I think that like you were saying, like there is room. There does feel like there's lots of room
Yeah.
for the game to grow, and especially in again over on YouTube, there's a lot of conversation around like, oh, if there was like an expansion with more Necromancer cards, could we
Mm.
add more players to the game? Because they like specifically like what Michael has like a family of 8 that they play games
Right.
with.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I think you know what, we probably would have to we'd have to try to be clever because I feel like the game would, you could go to 8 right now, right? With 2 sets.
Right.
It's just that you might have time to go to the kitchen to make yourself a sandwich when it's not your turn. And so what we would have to do is, and I don't think this is insurmountable, but uh, but we would have to sort of figure out a way to make sure that there's not a ton of downtime for people that it isn't their turn. And I,
Yeah.
I think I've got ideas about how to do that. So yeah, maybe.
Awesome. We have a question from Gaming Night on Twitch that says, what's one of the, if you were to make an expansion, what's one of the cards you have in your head for it already?
Oh man. Um,
And this could be art as well. If you have
oh,
But
some image
you know what?
burning in your mind.
I have not gone on the lead with the art. I just like, what do you want? Here, have that.
oh really? No, I was wondering if you had any ideas about, man, I sure would like to draw. This might be your opportunity to make an art-led card. We might come up with it right here. Um, um, yeah, like I said, I don't remember off the top of my head because I did this design work, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, and since it didn't make it into the final game, it just sort of has sat. But I know that I had like a niche for vampires and for liches and I think one other
Is
kind of
I
undead.
You know what? I like drawing the crawling claws. If we could have a niche for crawling claws,
Okay.
where they showed up more, that would
All
be
right.
great.
Okay. No, I think we're on it. Crawling claws. I liked, this isn't the question, but too bad I'm answering. Every time. So basically, in the process of like, it's like the art went out in waves, and once I saw Stan's ogres, I really liked them, and so in future waves, I would just change things to be more ogres because I just want Stan to draw more ogres.
That's so good.
They
I'm
were fun to draw.
I'm interested in how the concept around cards that have like advanced versions of them and like the art changing for them, like
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
initiate
yeah.
turning into the I don't know what the next stage
Yeah,
of.
yeah. No, talk about that. No, so
But
I absolutely loved that. Like Stan really, I think, killed that. So there are three sort of sets of cards where it has sort of the same character, but it's like they're advancing through their career as a cultist. And Stan did a really good job on that. So tell us about your process, Stan.
well, I mean, yeah, you sent me a list that specifically said these are the same character. It needs to be the same character as their beginner and middle and advanced. And I want it to look like that. It's like, all right, well, first thing is I'll start with them being young and fresh faced, and in the end they'll be old and bitter. Except for the marketing guy who's always just like, yeah, marketing, marketing, marketing,
The marketing guy was
marketing.
awesome. Yeah.
You know what? At first, when I got the art description, said wavy noodle guy,
Yeah.
like at a car lot, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how the hell do I draw? I mean, the thing about those is they move. Where
Right.
do you capture the movement that says, "Hi, I'm a moving waving noodly guy"? Um,
But you
and
did it. You
I
totally
think I
captured
got it, but it was one of those where I almost called Jeff up and said, "What the hell are you thinking?"
Why would you ask me to draw this?
Yeah. But also like when I've shown these to people and they're like, "Hey, that's the same guy." I'm like, "Yes, it is."
I remember having that moment playing the game and getting a card. I'm like, oh wait, this is the other guy, but older.
one
How
of
did he
one
get that scar? I don't know.
one
He
of the
just did.
funniest one of the funny the ones I still genuinely laugh at. I think it's on the outside of the box. Is that same marketing guy, and he's walking around with a sandwich board that says, "Raise the dead. Ask me how."
Yeah. That was your joke.
That was my joke. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
your joke.
Oh, that's so
But you
good.
drew him so enthusiastic, right? Like
It's very
you
good.
should be thankful that I didn't ask you to draw one of those guys who stands by the side of the road with the arrow sign, and his whole job is to just flip it around and grab your attention.
Yeah. You should be lucky you didn't ask that too. I know where you live.
Oh my goodness. There's an interesting question that someone had in here, and I don't think the game works like this as like a base in its base form, but I'm interested in what this would look like. Someone asked, is this mostly an everyone versus everyone game, or can teams work? And I'm interested in what would a team based version of Necromancer look like?
Well, you know what? You've you're already getting into where I think we might add more players
Mm.
is team kind of play. Right now, it's just you versus the world, because necromancers they don't there are no equals, right? You are the best.
Mm-hmm.
You will
Mm-hmm.
rule the world alone. But yeah, we could, what would be fun though, just to sort of keep the theme, would be a sort of survivor kind of where, you have an alliance for a while, but eventually it's going to crumble. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
stab someone in the back.
At that
And
point, then you need to start getting to the
right,
low
right, right. But by
souls.
then maybe you've knocked enough other players out. I don't, yeah. These are the
I mean, yeah,
directions
no,
I'm thinking in.
I'm hearing this, and I'm thinking it would be great if you had an alliance, but it shifted during the game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You have
Mm-hmm.
another two guys say, "Well, if we get together, if you leave them and come to us, we'll win." Don't leave us. I could win though over there.
Well, I mean, that kind of stuff, it sort of organically happens in games like this. I mean, I've certainly cajoled and threatened people to be on my side or not in
Right.
multiplayer games.
Mhm.
But it would be fun if it was a
We
more
saw some of that in the live stream there. There's one point
right.
where there's a bunch of cajoling going on.
It's when you
uh,
start getting cards where you're like, I have a combo, please don't screw it up. Like, it's just like,
But
but
I
it
mean
would
the
be
thing,
fun if there were like explicit mechanics to encourage
right?
that and to and to reward it. Yeah,
One of
yeah,
the things that would really make that fun to work to fit with this way it goes. If when you leave, you're not 100% sure of what you will take with you, right?
right.
Some of you
oh,
might think, okay, well, if all of this comes with me, my new team will win. But oh, you couldn't take this thing. Sorry,
Yeah,
the
you
it
had to
stayed
leave
with
all
the
the
other side.
abominations behind. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know why in my head I'm imagining it as one of the item cards that then pools your and someone else's like field together, and as long as it's there, you all keep everything. But when it goes
right,
away, you have to split it in half, which means someone else could potentially destroy it, or
right.
someone on your team
Right?
could destroy it if.
Well, things like that are sort of interesting too because they inform play while they're in play, right? It's not
Yeah,
just about what happens when it ends. When you know that you're going to split everything when it's over, you have another you have another pause before you put anything in, right?
yeah,
Because I might not get it back out,
yeah,
Um, so yeah, yeah, there's a lot of psychology that goes on in those kind of things, and it's fun to worm around in.
yeah. That's really interesting. Does anyone
Let's do it.
else? Let's do it. Does
We're
anyone?
designing it live. Let's go.
Does anyone else have any more questions? I think we have time for one more before we need to get on out of here.
Make it a good one. Come on, people.
Come on, this is your
I'll answer
last
any question.
chance.
Anything.
If you
How
don't,
much
I've
wood
got
would
one.
Chuck Chuck?
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if it could chuck wood?
Uh,
A question from Dot. What inspired you to start making card games?
card games. Well, playing card games. Uh, you play something and then you're done and you're like, I think I could do this better, or this sparks an idea for me, and so you just start.
Just
You
start
just
doing it.
kind of make a crappy little prototype and write down every idea in your head, and I've got 3 or 4 card games around here that that came that way. Just hey, here's an idea. Let me just right. Um, yeah. What about you, Stan? You've designed games.
I say,
What's
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the thing that gets you started in anything is I could do that better, or I wish this worked another way. Here's how it would work.
I feel like
But
that's the secret of D&D
yeah,
actually. Is
yeah,
is that originally it was kind of a not even kind of it was a broken game, and so everyone came to it and was like, well, I can make this better, right? And that has spawned decades of
yeah.
audience participation, right?
Yeah.
um
And once that's a thing that's going on in your head, then you will have things like, here's an idea. I don't know where it goes, and I'm going to write it down. And the more you do that, the more like. I did not start doing card games, but I certainly started having ideas. I'm like, that's not good for role playing or a board, but that'd make a good card game. Well, let's start a new pile.
Yeah. That's really good. There's something about game designs, both RPGs and board games, that allows for the kind of like couch side coach to then become an actual coach,
Yeah.
yeah,
and like actually get their hands in it.
I used to run the Thunderstone card game for AEG. This was a while back. It's a dungeon crawlery deck builder kind of game. And what I discovered after sort of being the shepherd of the line for about 6 months is I was like, oh, this game can do anything. Uh, it was really easy to just take it and do other stuff with it. And it felt very D&D in that way because it was like you play it and you're like, yeah, this is fun, this is pretty good, but what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and Thunderstone went a lot of weird directions in its life, and it might not be done going weird directions. But although my time has ended, like I still hear rumblings about it every once in a while.
Well,
It's the thunder coming back for you.
Mm-hmm.
it's echoing.
Jeff Quick.
Well, Jeff, Stan, thank you both so much for joining us. I know that I already love Necromancer from the time that I played it, and now that I know that it's even better, I'm waiting for my box to get here so that I can so I can play with my roommates. Basically, I hope you all are so excited for Necromancer as well. Don't forget, you can go over to the Kobold Press store right now and pre-order it.
Reorder!
You can get it right now. So please go do it. Just like
Remember,
Jeff said,
if you want more, you got to buy this one.
if you want more, show us. And if you want more card games and board games from us, this is the way to show us that it's something that you're interested in. So head on over to the Kobold Press store and do that. We are going to take a quick 15-minute break. We will be back at the top of the hour. And for our... let me make sure I know which one is next. Yes, for Tea Time on the Riverbank, where we will be talking with Kid Johnson about the Riverbank RPG. So we will see you all then. Bye, y'all.
Peace.
Bye.